Morning, everyone. I got your attention. This is historic. What a fantastic room of fantastic people on what I really genuinely believe will be an historic day, or not just for the Good Employment Charter, but hopefully for Greater Manchester. I say that, look, we've been a charter for 6 years now, since the Mayor became elected. He had a vision of a Good Employment Charter. He recognised that the conditions of work in Greater Manchester weren't what they should be. We didn't have inclusive workplaces. And one of the initiatives was the Charter to try and create inclusive workplaces, where we can get the talents and skills of all our people to help our economy grow, and for everybody to benefit from good work. And that's why we're here. And we've been doing our work for the last 6 years, engaging employers, bringing in good employers and some not so good employers through a journey so that they understand what good should look like. And this is a significant moment in our journey. Perhaps more of that later. Let's do some housekeeping first. You've all, I hope, either picked up a badge or understood the stickers that were at reception. This is a Neuroinclusive event. I hope I'll just reiterate what we had on the screen previously in terms of the various accommodations we've hopefully made today so that you all feel comfortable in this space. There is a quiet room, I think it's G3, marked at the back of the reception when you came in. The toilets are to your right. We're not expecting a fire drill, and if the fire alarm does go off, then we assemble at the library, or just in front of the library on the other side of the road. You've also got on your table some notification about filming. We are filming, and we are relaying this on a webcam, which is also being projected into the quiet room, so you won't miss out if you do feel that you have to go to the quiet room. But hopefully some people are online as well to access what's going to be said today. Also, you'll find on your table a QR code, as well as some pieces of paper for you to submit questions to the panel later. We'll curate those and then bring them to Mary so that she can ask the panel later. So if you feel more comfortable using your device rather than writing your question down, please click on the QR code. I think the QR codes are on the table too. But listen, back to history. And goodness, aren't we in a historic building? This building was built around 200 years ago. I think it was 1828, so it's coming up to its 200th anniversary. I think we were commenting earlier. It had a refurb in the 60s, by the looks of things. It probably hasn't been touched since, but if you like that sort of thing, it's kind of retro. But we're just across the road from St Peter's Fields, where Peterloo happened, of course. That happened 10 years previous to this building being built. And then across at the Free Trade Hall in 1862, we saw Manchester workers go on strike because they weren't going to use slave cotton. This area, this square half mile, is reeking with history around workplace and fairness. Just down the road, in 1868, the TUC was formed in Manchester. We've got a long history of this stuff. And that's why some days I wake up thinking, there's a lot on our shoulders here. There's a lot on our shoulders. Because we've got, if we don't know about charters in Manchester, yeah, who does? So we've got to make this thing work. Charters for me aren't pieces of paper with words on them. They become movements. And I know that many people in this room have heard me say that before. But I think you are the evidence that this is not just a paper exercise, it is something that matters and something that moves forward. And I'm also reminded of another historic character who's, again, within 800 metres of us, Emmeline Pankhurst. And her statue, if you haven't seen it, it's just across in St. Peter's Square. And what was she famous for saying? Votes for women, of course. But she talked about deeds, not words. Deeds, not words. Now that's important for us, because this time last year was Good Employment Week. And we ran a whole range of events around inclusion in the workplace. And one of those events was around neurodiversity. And loud and clear we heard we want to do something really positive. And so with partners, with the best partners, over the last 12 months we have been working together to produce this, to produce the Code of Practice. The Code of Practice, you know, it isn't a manual, it isn't thick. It's short and to the point and being written exclusively by neurodiverse people. So we have to listen to this. We have to listen to this. And it's my job and our team's job, and can I say your job, to take this forward now, to take it out there, to share it with colleagues, to share it with clients, to share it with your supply chains. Take this neurodiversity code and make it part of the Good Employment Charter movement. So, my pleasure to be here, my honour to be here to help this agenda move forward. And none of it would have happened without our first speaker, Shirley Woods-Gallagher. I'm absolutely delighted to join us today. And Shirley, can I invite you on stage?
Can everyone please give it up to Ian, because that was such a beautiful speech, wasn't it? So nice. I might just have to hold this. I'm so sorry. I don't have the best hand skills, do I, Pete? Well, I'll do my best. So it's so beautiful to see so many of you here today, and I can't just stand at a lectern. I need to walk around and move, and I'm hoping no one says, oh, your skirt's transparent. I didn't find that out now on a stage. Yeah, I'd just like to begin by sharing, you know, and sorry, I'm all over the place, aren't I? I'll start again. So one of my favourite people is Brené Brown. So hands up, anyone who really likes Brené Brown. Brilliant. I always know, but people do, don't they, like about courageous hope. And I really love that quote that she has, which is that those that wade into discomfort and vulnerability and tell the truth about their stories are the real badasses. So in no uncertain terms, welcome to me being a badass. I am unapologetically autistic, and I am in a leadership position here in Greater Manchester, but I don't just do paid work to people who work with me historically or currently do, or I do lots of unpaid work as well. So I am an executive director of a multi-academy trust of specialist schools. I am trusted to lead on our leadership and governance pillar of our trust action plan, and I am autistic. Nothing bad's happened. If anything, Claire, our CEO, and I'm nodding to some colleagues here, would go, my word, this has really cracked on since we gave you that portfolio. I'm also an advisory member of something called Invest in Play. So we're all quite familiar with parenting programmes. They've been around for years. I'm really conscious that they weren't really neuroaffirmative, and I was really conscious they didn't actually take account of the dynamic of the parents may also be neurodivergent as well, and how does that interplay. So some Lego seed money was given, and we developed the Invest in Play programme and an advisor on that, and I'm delighted that Danish government have rolled it out. Looking at Sam at the back, because we know the founder of it, don't we? And it's also in Finland and in Estonia, and it's currently being trialled in Stockport as well. So wouldn't it be great if we had it all over the UK? Stockport, Estonia, Iceland, it's all happening. I'm also been an advisor for the International Federation of Inclusive Practitioners, and I've attended conferences at UNESCO, and let me tell you, they weren't neuroinclusive. And I kept going, right, I'm going for a walk now in the sensory garden outside. And they were like, do you mean the UN Peace Garden? Yes, I do, who's joining me? And no one was expecting that. And I'm also on the British Board of Film Classification as an advisory panel for children's viewing. And let me tell you, I am the least posh person on that panel. It is the great and the good. You know, Lord Kush Patel, who runs Yorkshire Cricket, Natasha Kaplinsky, she's our president and chair, and then, hiya, it's me, bouncing down from Greater Manchester, telling you like it is. But they really listen, so I'm delighted that the BBFC has been to our trust and has actually talked about film and online safety with our children. They have an education section. I'm delighted to have worked with the youth panel to make sure that it's more neuroaffirmative and new-inclusive. And because they are very senior people, networked into other places like David Cameron's former advisor and people like that, and former government ministers, what I say then has legs and has influence. So I know that when I'm on that role, I'm not just being me, it's having a wider impact for the good and the great. And I also lead the National Medicine and Specialist School Groups. So as anyone who works in the specialist sector will tell you, our lowest paid staff take the highest clinical risk, and we need to make sure it's safe for them working with the health partners. So I'm very often talking to Lorraine Mulrooney from the Department for Health, very often talking to Benedict Coffin from the Department for Education. We're running our first ever national conference on this with Equals in November, and I lead that. And no one else in any of those leadership roles goes, well, why is she leading it? She's autistic. Everyone accepts me as a peer and as a colleague. And I'm also delighted that for a number of years I was a trustee at Respect for All. And for those who aren't familiar with the work, and I'm delighted the CEO Sam's here today, we provide neuroaffirmative counselling to anyone aged 6 upwards, so there's no cap, you could be 96, who is autistic or might have a learning disability or both. Because very often some of the NHS services just don't offer appropriate, timely or even evidence-informed neuroaffirmative healthcare. And when you do use NHS services, you might often find you spend half of your sessions providing psychoeducation to the therapist who's supposed to help you. Next slide, please. Brilliant. So, in terms of my story and, you know, my autism journey, like most of us who are later in life diagnosed, you come to a realisation point, don't you? And my realisation was before the pandemic began. But my lived experience and reality of the pandemic, and as my wonderful husband says, who was making banana bread when this was going on, because it wasn't in our house. So I have chronic lung disease, so I was in the shielding category. And I'm delighted my Uncle Phil's here today, but he sadly lost his brother and I lost my father to COVID right at the start of the pandemic as well. So in that context, in that same week, I was diagnosed autistic. So there isn't that opportunity to talk to your wider family members because everyone's socially distancing about what had happened. And in that context of trauma, someone thought it was fun to come on Teams and go out of the way to ridicule the experience of my dad's funeral that wasn't, which was bad. But in the aftermath and what ensued in the months ahead was that they've realised I'd had an autism diagnosis, and then that was being used as the gold standard to get her in line, to get her to shut up, to get her to stop talking about what had happened to her in her dad's funeral. But I didn't. And I'm a bit like the fire lily. So whilst the entire world was burning and was on fire and was scorched for me, a bit like the fire lily that remains dormant underground for 15 years, I was awakened by the smoke. So the chaos and the trauma I was awoken by, and I popped up and I went, yes, I am autistic. What is your problem here? I work and I'm good at my job. How dare you? And I outed myself to everybody. Now, I wouldn't recommend this necessarily as something that's good for your own mental health, because the reality was everyone thought she's in a leadership position. She said she's autistic, so I created inadvertently psychological safety for everyone. So what do you think happened then? Everyone comes running towards me. Can I tell you my trauma? Can you help me? And actually I was barely functioning myself. But having been outed, having come out with this, and having a torrid time, so I get trolled online by welfare rights officers who will say to me on LinkedIn, you need to stop posting like this, you won't all get a job. And I think, well, you won't be that attitude. And actually, you're probably in the wrong job yourself if that's what your attitude is towards neurodivergent people. I've had the indignity of someone phoning up my CEO in my current role and demanding that I was sacked for posting about autism and trauma on LinkedIn, which is outrageous, and they kept their job. So at that point in time, 2 years on from campaigning, I made the conscious decision, I cannot do this alone anymore. I need someone who's more senior than me, like big out there, who can help me do this at scale and pace. So I created a two-sider, and I stood in a queue for a number of months, like you do if you want to see our fantastic mayor, Andy Burnham. And I thought, I'm not telling him the trauma, I want my dignity back. I am over the pity party. So I'm going to pitch a two-sider that goes through the facts, the figures, what it means to the economy, how these are long overdue conversations at work, and it's outrageous. And because he likes bees, because it's Manchester, aren't we? We like our worker bee, and we have the bee network. I'll call it Bee Neuroinclusive because that'll get his attention. And years ago, I did some work with him on early years alongside Lucy Powell, and I had an old photograph, so I included that in it. It's me, early years, you know me, I bang on about starting children's centres. Will you help me? And he did. And we literally came out of that meeting, and poor Ian was stood outside because he was waiting to meet him next, and he was like, you're going to work with Shirley.
It wasn't poor.
Yeah.
Poor Ian.
But it was kind of like, you know, we're going to do this work on being Neuroinclusion. And this is kind of what we've done since. But in terms of the fire lily story, there's this really powerful video that I think kind of articulates what I'm trying to reframe as my story now moving forward. Because our rainforest moment is right now. We are building back better with our biodiversity, and that's our absolute strength. So it will look different than it did before, but it always needed to look different than it did before. And it will build back stronger and better for generations to come, and I'm proud of that. Very silent. But, you know, I like to think of Andy Burnham as being my sunbird. Swooped down and went, do you know what? You need some help and support here. Let's get around you and let's rebuild this rainforest because we need to do it. And this is an example of why it's so important. I screen grabbed this from LinkedIn 2 weeks ago, and it's a real letter that someone had at work. I'll come on to this person safe now. But it was supporting in an employment support someone at work, and it was for an autistic client, and it says, "Dear blah, thank you very much for taking the time for the interview for the position with us. We enjoyed interviewing you with your background, skills and experience." You think, fair enough. Here's the killer paragraph. "After careful consideration, because of your autism needs, we've decided we will not move forward with your application." It's discrimination. And then there's a really patronising, "We genuinely appreciate your effort that you put into the interview at the end." So it was all right, because about 1 million of us jumped on it straight away, went, ACAS, unions, employment law. And so ACAS are now involved. There has been a fulsome apology, and I don't know what kind of an agreement that was come to, and a settlement. But this is 2 weeks ago in the UK. So this is not okay, and it doesn't surprise me. In fact, we're going to the next slide in. I kind of share some uncomfortable truths, I like to call them, which are basically facts around neurodivergence and employment. So some of these are just about autism, and that's not to exclude other types of neurodivergence. It's because we don't collect data on that at the moment. If we had the data, I would have absolutely brought it to you on dyslexia, dyspraxia, acquired brain injuries. I would have brought absolutely a lot to you, but we don't. So the employment rates for everyone who have working age is 80% in the UK today. DWP stats. All of these are referenced, by the way, so you can find them because I'm fed up with mysteries and misinformation. But if we look at people who are disabled, that drops to 60%. So that's a disadvantage gap straight away. But when people are out about being autistic at work, it drops to 30%. And that's been a stubborn statistic for a decade. So things aren't working as they should, are they? So that's a 30% disadvantage around being autistic in the workplace and being out about it. And what I know, because I've done 1 million or more workshops now, whether they've been national leadership, training programmes with Warwick University or workshops in GM, is people will freely say to me, "Do you know what, I've never met anyone like you before at work." And are you sure about that? Absolutely sure about that. Absolutely sure about that. I've even had people when I've said, you know, if I tick disability confident, reason ultimate in your organisation, and you're a would-be chief exec of a local authority, the NHS anywhere in the UK, would you give me a job? With no hesitation, one table, one said, oh God, of course we wouldn't, we'd bin you in the reject pile. No pause. No one came to rescue me in that moment. No one stood by my side. Everyone just went, and I sort of say, well, let's unpack that then. Isn't that really important that we're having these conversations then at work and in the workplace? If you can so freely tell me you would discriminate against me on the basis of ticking disability confident. Birkbeck University, delighted to have Nancy Doyle here today, who set up the Birkbeck Neurodiversity, so I'm quoting you. 65% of neurodivergent people would not disclose to their line manager through fear of you being used against them at work, losing their career, losing the job. And once that genie's out of the bottle, you can't put it back in again. So I know that I don't have to tick disability confident or not anymore. You Google me, I'm the only Dr. Shirley Woods-Gallagher you can find on Google, and it comes up with a shed load of podcasts. I've done that. Bit late. But also, we know from research that Professor Kim Hock did. If you're not familiar with his work, he's superb. He's always going in and out of Parliament, hassling the House of Lords and the House of Commons to death on this, at University College London. And he did a thumping great study on 128,000 people. So that's not a tiny study, that's a massive study. And what he found was, in the time period that we've had disability confident, 9 years, so 9 years we've given it our best shot, it's had 0% impact on job outcomes. Zero. So just telling people, hi, I'm disabled, or hi, I'm autistic, or dyspraxic, or neurodivergent, has had zero impact on job outcomes. So just telling people's not working. We need to do something. Exactly like you said, you kind of stole the words out of my mouth, with the deeds, not words. Neuroinclusive is an intentional act. It doesn't happen because people sit around and go, do you know, I'm really thinking about neuroinclusion today, and I've got really good thoughts about it. You have to show it in action, or it doesn't work. The research that Buckland came out with, which was such a shame because the general election was called the day after, I think it was, that this was Lord Buckland's research was conducted, and that was, even if you play the system, even if you can cope and manage your way through the education system in this country at the moment and get on to get a degree, 36% of graduates can't find any paid work whatsoever 15 months after graduation. That's outrageous. These are the things that absolutely need to change. 45, this is ACAS research earlier on this year, 45% of line managers lacked organisational knowledge about neurodiversity. And if you've managed to get an interview, even though you take disability confident and what your reason is, 59% are unable to make a reasonable adjustment. So imagine you're getting work, you've done your best, you've done your interview, you're really confident, and then they go, oh sorry, we don't really know what we're doing. Oh, sorry. So you're not being neuroinclusive, is it? That's not even performative. It must do better thing, which is why we've got the code. And then the very latest research is from Dr. Gavin Stewart and Francesca Happy from King's College London. And actually, in my age category, 40 to 59, 89% of people are undiagnosed at the moment. So is everyone absolutely sure they've never met anyone like me at work before, or they don't know anyone? Of course they do. Of course they do. And what we do know about statistics at the moment, and this is Deloitte's research and ICAU, is that between 15 and 20% of the global population are neurodivergent. So if I break this down into very simple Greater Manchester terms, we take the 10 local authority areas as a population, that's the city the size of Manchester is neurodivergent. So this is not a minority issue, a tiny issue, a 1 in 100, or we've never met anyone like you before, or it's just about children, isn't it? We don't have adults. We do. We absolutely do. And we find ourselves in a bizarre national and international context that's challenging whilst we're absolutely going, no, we are doing this work. We are doing this work, even if it's challenging. In fact, been a filer once. Do you know what I mean? I've got the scars. I'm up for round 2. People are coming for all of us now. We ride it on. That's what I think. Neurodivergence assemble and all that. So we've had cuts to the hip. You know what I mean? Trying to be bringing through the back door, which was just absolutely brutal. But we managed to get that stopped. We've got, he just doesn't stop, does it? I mean, Kennedy, where do I go with the quotes? This was when I put the slides together, when he was like, I'm going to know the cause of autism by September. And what he knew was he couldn't pin it on his conspiracy theories about the MMR vax, because they'd been disputed for 20 years. He got shredded in the New York Times. Look on my LinkedIn feed, it's there, I post everything that I find around vaccination. So he's tried pinning it on paracetamol. And, you know, correlation is not the same as causation. And if it absolutely was causation, then why do people have twins and one's autistic and one's not? And then even this morning, apparently it's caused by circumcision, isn't it? That was his latest. That was his latest. And all I can think is MAGA cabinet are obsessed with people's genitals, is all I can say on that subject. We've also, there's a big thing at the moment, and I've seen reform candidates talk about this in this country, and at the moment the government sadly is doing some health research on, are we overdiagnosing neurodivergence? Well, we've just said that 89% of my age category are diagnosed. We exist. And at no point does anyone in the NHS or in public services say, can we please stop diagnosing cancer? It's 1 in 2 people, and quite frankly, it's overdiagnosed, and we just need to stop it now. Everyone would get that's just absolutely ridiculous. So we are not overdiagnosed, we're underdiagnosed, underserviced, misunderstood, and not felt as part of the community, and enough is enough. And yeah, so I'm not dealing with the overdiagnosis garbage, it's unhelpful. And then what we have found is there have been some changes to access to work arrangements over the summer that the Guardian and other news have picked up on, that I kind of think there might be a judicial review in the making here, because I can't see in Parliament, my PhD democracy by the way, I can't see in Parliament that anyone's taken anything through, and you'd need to do public consultations to change benefits and services. But what we do know, that what they brought in with PIP assessments is AI. So everyone loves a bit of AI. AI is going to do everything, isn't it? And in the specialist sector we get that a lot, and I always go, I can't wait for the AI that does personal care. You know, it isn't happening, is it? But what we do know is, if you've got language models that are based on neurotypical norms, what do we think would happen with a system that's set up for neurodivergent people? It's going to kick them out, because you've got a language processing difference. So that's what's been happening with an awful lot of applicants. So it isn't that budget's being saved, or someone's wowing at the job in Liz Kendall's office, or whoever's got it now. It basically means you're screening people out by design. And at the UNESCO conference that I mentioned earlier, which was actually 20 years of Salamanca, ironically, and not a single disabled or neurodivergent person was on stage. So what did I do when it ended? I ran up on stage, I stood there and went, can you take my photo? Because someone autistic will stand on this stage in education today, whether I was invited or not, just before we finished. Sorry, that was a total diversion, wasn't it? Sorry, next slide, I'm rambling on it. Well, if we quantify this in economic terms, and again I apologise, we've only got autistic statistics, Pro Bono Economics did a big study on what this costs the UK economy. So this isn't driving at it from the point of view of let's take away people's benefits and then go, come on, just stop being different and behave yourself and all that kind of thing. Husband's laughing at me because he thinks you've just done an impression of your mum. So Pro Bono Economics said that if we double the rate of employment for out autistic people, so that's 30% to 60, just benchmarking it against the general discrimination of all disabled people at work, it's worth £1.5 billion to the UK economy. So there's lots of people always talk about, well, it costs too much, and like, it's like 1.5 billion because people are in work, and what people in work do, what do? They pay tax. What do they also do? They usually spend locally. Most of us aren't billionaires buying yachts and offshore things, do we? We go to the supermarket around the corner, we go in the local bars and the restaurants, we support the local cinemas and gyms and our local activities, we keep the economy local. So it's about really good regeneration. So of course neuroinclusion was always going to be a really important part of the Charter Code, and also a really important part of our fight back around what I call austerity speak and building back better for Greater Manchester, because I'm really cognizant that of me in this role and being out means a huge amount to neurodivergent children and young people and their parents, and we've got some of them here today. It matters to them. I know I'm the ladder and the lamp for them, kind of going, it's not always easy. I'm not going to lie and say some of this work's easy, but also I'm not just going to shut the drawbridge up and say, good luck down there. I'm going to reach back and go, come on kids, let's lever you up. So something I'm just going to bring on stage now, if someone can pass it to me, is something that our college girls group made for me. I was going to an awards ceremony and I sort of said to the girls, do you know what, I'm really inspired by Hannah Waddingham, the actress. She went to the Screen Actors Guild Award and her daughter made her a handbag, and I was like, oh, your daughter can't take you with a homemade handbag. So I said, girls, can we make you one? So this is actually cardboard. It's an inside out black t-shirt and it's a glue gun. It's fabulous. And the girls made me this and it's got Neuropride on it, and they were so thrilled that I took it to the event and got them some photographs. But we did a fringe event with Andy Burnham last week. Poor Andy walked in and I went, here's me handbag, have a photo take. And to be fair, he went, oh, can I take it to the Everton match? So you can, fill your boots. But it really matters to the girls, so that we put out messages about neuropride and things. The girls are so touched with the photograph that I didn't realise it's in the back of your brochures for the code of me and Andy with a handbag, that the girls are making me a new handbag because they feel seen. So one of the things, because we've been talking about historical moments today, and I will make this happen, as you well know, is I'm going to get this handbag and a copy of the code and a bit of a social story with our girls and maybe something from Andy as well, and put this in the People's History Museum, because it's really important that we talk about pride. So it's got the neurodiversity infinity symbol on it as well, deliberately by design. And what I always say to our girls groups is you've got to be proud of yourself. And when I went to this fancy dinner, as Mary knows, it was a lot, wasn't it? It was like sensory overload hell. It was like, yes, we're inclusive, and it was like, it wasn't. I've never seen so much glitter and lights and everything going off, and it was full on, and it was too warm, and I wasn't happy. We sat at the back, and I'm like, oh God, when does it get over with? But I knew I couldn't cope with what I call mucked about food in an environment like that. So I just asked for a plain cheese sandwich, and we're at the Midland Hotel. So it's swanky, isn't it? And everyone's having champagne, and it's all very cheese sandwich, plain cheese sandwich. And it had a little nameplate at the front of it, and it said my name, and it said plain cheese sandwich for Shirley. And I gave that to the girls when I went back to college girls group with the handbag and the award, taught them through it with photos, and I went, girls, it doesn't matter where you go in life and how posh it is and how much you feel pressured into conforming. Be yourselves. I sat there and I ate my cheese sandwich. So. I mean, one of the things I've talked about here is psychological safety, and I created that at scale for a lot of people by just going, yes, I am autistic, what's your problem? But that wasn't really safe for me to do, and I get that. But this is the key bit, I think, for organisations. If you never talk about it, ever, at work, how will anyone ever know? So DIB strategies, any organisation in GM, pull them off the shelf, see if you see the word neurodiversity in any of them. And if they're not mentioned, then why would anyone in that organisation think it's safe to talk about that? You wouldn't. You wouldn't. So loads of people skulk around. One of the most interesting conversations we've done through this process of neuroinclusion work is a number of GMCA staff have come forward, haven't they? And I've sort of said, look, this isn't because GMCA isn't a cracking place to work. I've worked there, it's cracking. It's because you've never talked about it. So if you never talk about it, no one's going to think it's been okay to bring that aspect of themselves to work. And that's what really matters. So it can't come from the individual ticking on an application form when you've never even met them, disability confident, reason autism, reason dyspraxia, reason ADHD, reason Tourette's, and then fingers crossed and hoping for the best. It just won't work. It has to come from organisations going, we have it in our DIB strategy, we do Neurodiversity Celebration Week. Yeah, we don't just say, well, today's World Mental Health Day, isn't it? Happy World Mental Health Day, everyone. And it's not just gone, well, we do neurodiversity just on World Mental Health Day. We talk about the crisis and the dysregulation and the trauma. No, we want to talk about the brilliant aspects of being neurodivergent as well. We want to see all of us, so we have to celebrate Neurodiversity Celebration Week as well. And we need to think of this as being a post-industrial strategy to grow back bigger and better for Greater Manchester. And nobody is going to look at a disability confidence scheme and go, oh, they're disability confident. Thumbs up, they've got it sussed. It just won't happen. I deliberately mystery shop things in Greater Manchester and nationally, trying to find best practice. But you'll stumble across all sorts of things where you go, oh my God, I'd never apply for a job there. They've seen what the adverts say, and they're trying to be patronising, I would say. I always say to employers, when you're talking about workplace, I call them workplace adjustments, I don't call them reasonable adjustments. How dare anyone sit on telling me whether they think it's reasonable or not, whether I can work, whether it's reasonable or not to not understand how my brain's wired. I think it's quite offensive, so I'll use the word workplace adjustment. But the key thing is, not just saying, we've got a tick list of this is what we offer and nothing else. So fit in these boxes, get you shoved into a new hole in a different way of working. It's like, listen to the person about what would work for them. And often employers will say, well, someone's been late with life diagnosed and they don't really know what they want. And I'm trying to help and I don't really know what I'm doing either. So I say the simple rule of thumb is this. Ask somebody what a really good week at work looks like and break it down from the journey in to the working day to the full kit, caboodle and shebang. And then have the same conversation about what a really horrendous week at work looks like and try and understand what those two issues are and craft something based on that. And also expect it to change, because as jobs and roles change and they're dynamic, people's, and as we're neurodivergent now, our capacity fluctuates and changes, doesn't it, depending on environmental factors. It'll be different for different people. So it's about listening to your workforce about what would work for them and crafting it and building it up with your workforce, not just using sort of tick lists of what you think would make you neuroinclusive. You've got staff, you need to make them feel confident and included and be involved in the co-design of this. So our story so far on being neuroinclusive it's kind of gone bigger than I thought it would, I'll be honest. I was just fussed and going, can we do something? Can Andy just talk about this kind of thing? And talk about employment, because it's really, really important and it's bigger than me and my story. So we've done podcasts. There's now been 2 podcasts. There's now been 2 blogs, 2 Labour Party fringe events, a DI-based session, and during Neurodiversity celebration, during Good Employment Week. We've done events at the BBC on neurodiversity, and that one at the BBC was so beautiful because 16 employers then came forward and then offered to do some support at Samuel Laycock School with some of our children, and our former head teacher from Samuel Laycock is here today. And it was just so beautiful that they all stepped forward to do that. And then another person who came to one of our reverse employability events that we do at MAT level, and there's actually a photograph of the reverse employability event on the front cover of your code, so some of our children are on there, which is fabulous to see. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. Gosh, I'm rambling, aren't I? Never mind. Thank you. We've also, at the BBC, one of those led to someone who was disabled coming and running a Dragon's Den style event again at Samuel Laycock School with our children, and that empowers them and their parents to think bigger and broader and better for them and a meaningful future. And one of the things we kind of got a bit of commitment from both our Mayor, Andy Burnham, and also the Deputy Mayor of London, Howard Daubert, who I really want to give lots of credit and praise to as well. He used to run Canary Wharf, so he's like a bit of a big cheese and knows what he's doing in the business world. Both of them have committed that we will do a Neuroinclusion Mayoral Summit at some point next year. So that's getting the 8 metropolitan mayors together and sharing best practice, because some of them, like Manchester and London, have been around forever. Others are much newer and they've got much, much tinier organisations behind them in terms of their devolution powers. So why wouldn't we share it amongst the 8? And I'm cheeky, as you well know, Ian. So I'm like, well, do you know what? If the mayors meet on a regular basis with the Prime Minister, who sets the agenda? And I wonder if we could take neuroinclusion in as an alternative to whatever's going on in DWP. And something that I'm really, really thrilled to share today, especially on World Mental Health Day, is this. It's Alan Turing's plaque that's in Sackville Gardens, just off Canal Street in Manchester. And there's a big, if you've ever been there, there's a beautiful garden, there's a statue of Alan sat there holding an apple, and there's this information about Alan's life. And I love the fact our LGBTQ plus community has absolutely kept the torch alive, celebrating Alan and Alan's sexuality, and that's wonderful. But we never talk about the fact he was autistic as well. And I thought I need to do something like this because it's a teachable moment to lots of people around work. So I emailed Councillor Bev Craig, the leader of Manchester City Council, and I simply said, look, If Alan applied for a job today at Bletchley Park, where he broke the Enigma code, or at the University of Manchester, where he worked in our city for many years and had a shed load of research money thrown at him, where he developed the baby, the world's first computer, now on display in our Museum of Science and Industry. And he, there were the issues around GCHQ and his sexuality. But if you apply for jobs at those organisations now, largely his sexuality wouldn't be a reason not to recruit him. I'm not saying he wouldn't experience workplace issues, because hateful people can work anywhere. Yeah? But if Alan ticked disability confident reason autism, he probably would not have even got an interview for Bletchley Park. So that would have been 2 more years of the Second World War, millions more people would have died, the Enigma code would not have come about, the world's first computer, baby, would not have been, created at the University of Manchester and currently sat in our museum library. So that's the potential, that's the teachable moment, and I'm really pleased that we got the evidence-based research from 2003, British Journal of Psychiatry. If anyone wants it, I'll ping it round after. It cost me 35 quid to buy a copy of it to prove it, that said that from everything that we know about him in the public domain and private records, if you map that against diagnostic criteria by a number of international people who've done this peer-reviewed search, he would have met the criteria for a diagnosis of autism Asperger's. And actually, had he had the appropriate supports in place, his outcome might have been different. So it's a beautiful story of intersectionality, and we do things differently here in Greater Manchester, don't we? And I'm so proud of being able to make sure that all of Alan is seen. And I would like to thank the Friends of Sackville Gardens and Carl Austin Bevan, who's done nothing but support me to make sure that this was happening yesterday evening. He was like, I'm in the gardens now. You go on their Instagram page, he's put a photograph of Sackville Gardens, he says, I'm in the gardens now. So that's a teachable moment for Alan, and that's so powerful for our children and young people to know that as well. We are not just doing Pride, we are also doing Neuropride and seeing all of Alan in his glory. Thank you. And here's a picture of our mayor with the handbag that I was just talking about, saying Greater Manchester's proud to be Neuroinclusive. And I'd really like to thank our mayor, Andy, for his leadership in this space. He's an incredibly busy man, and he's even busier at the moment, let's be honest. And he could choose any subject or area to put his energy into, but he's fully committed to this. He's fully committed GMCA resources to this, and he's fully committed to charter to this, and it's not performative. If I thought anyone was being performative at this stage, as you can probably tell, I'd be like, I don't know how long I've got left. I've got life to live here. I am a filer. I'm out of the ground now. I'm rebuilding my forest. If you're not here, get out of the way. I've got children behind me to bring with me. And he hasn't been like that. He has been genuinely beautiful and authentic in this space. And I'd just like to, if we can all please give a round of applause to Eva and Mandy here from the Combined Authority for all of their support. So that's me. I have got a red badge on today by design because it's quite overwhelming because of the content of what I've talked about. I do live with post-traumatic stress disorder as a consequence of everything I've been through. I'm not ashamed of that, it's just part of my life now. So please do respect the red badge and I will approach you. But if anyone wants to follow me at all, I'm on LinkedIn and I post a heck of a lot about neuroinclusion at work by design because I am autistic. Thank you.
Seamus and Andrew, who's going to talk about the work of Neon in developing the code. Guys, you okay?
Cool, that is a tough act to follow, but we will do our best. So, we just wanted to talk today about the Neuroinclusive Organisations Network, which is a Greater Manchester initiative putting together a number of different businesses from across sectors. We're going to talk through how businesses from across Manchester are included in the creation of the code and how future businesses can get involved in kind of the implementation of it going forward. So, NEON stands for Neuroinclusive Organisations Network. We were previously known as the Greater Manchester Neurodiversity and Learning Disability Employer Network. Very catchy, very easy to say, but we did think neon was a little bit easier, so we've rebranded, I think it was within the last year or so. We've got a brand new logo by SENDCode and a number of really great assets. We have 3 core focuses, which is furthering advocacy for neuroinclusion across Greater Manchester, so making sure that neurodivergent people have equal opportunities to access careers and thrive in them. We're looking to build a strong network of employers and advocates, and we're also looking to help people share best practice. But alongside best practice, we're also looking to help people kind of ask the questions they need to. I think it's great when we have people up on stage who can say they did a great job of like revamping recruitment or we changed our office space, but the really valuable bit is the conversation after where you're like, I have no idea how to get there. So that's what kind of Neon is about, is that making all this change accessible to everybody. So we were formed back in 2020. It started with the Greater Manchester Enabling Employment campaign, which was also supported by SENDCode. So that was kind of just a bit of a spotlight on Neuroinclusion in Manchester. It was, one of the main participants was Christos, who is our People and Culture Director at AutoTrader. So off the back of that meeting, we kind of realised we had some good momentum in terms of the work that we could be doing around the city, and we decided we wanted to make a bit of a focus group, keep people together, see where we could grow and go from there. And we saw the same gap then that we see now, which is that there's a lot of good intentions around kind of wanting to do the work, but there's not necessarily an easy enough framework to actually make it possible, which is why we think that this code is like a really great opportunity, because it's so clear in terms of the things that we could be doing and how we could be approaching things differently. So we think one of the main reasons that this has lasted 5 years is because we have this really like core principle of that if you're in it, it's to look at your own practices and your own principles. It's not a forum where you can come and like sell your products. It's you come to listen and learn. And yeah, it's about doing the work. So we have grown from I think it was like 5 or 6 people to over 100 members now. Do at semi-annual events, like biannual or quarterly, tackling issues like recruitment, environment, stereotypes, intersections of identity is another big one, and then go and implement it and come back and kind of say, how did that work for us? Where do we go from here? One of the benefits of that is that everybody's bringing their own lived experience. So it's either people who are neurodiverse, or they're working like HR, or they're working with those people on a daily basis. So it's a good opportunity to kind of bring together lived experience, and that's the lived experience is what we managed to bring into the code. So like Ian mentioned before, this was written by neurodivergent people. So the sessions that we ran had different businesses and individuals from across Manchester were going through set questions, going through the material of the code, and questioning it. Does this make sense for us? Where could we add? Where can we clarify? And yeah, culture shifted that way. So in terms of the impact going forward, so it's a very good framework. One of the things that we really want to focus on now is how we implement this across Manchester. So I think there's lots of like best practice available online, but it is that kind of how do we do this in our businesses. So that's why we want to. I'm so nervous, I'm not a presenter by the way. So yeah, it's basically moving forward, we're wanting to kind of become a bit of a vehicle in helping everybody implement this code, have those conversations. In a year from now, we want people to be asking what's changed within their businesses. So how have you materially changed your recruitment? How have you plugged the gap between education and employment within Manchester? Do people feel more confident that they can be their authentic selves in the city? How do we measure that? How do we optimise it going forward? So that's kind of what we want to kind of push for going forward. Oh, I know this one. So, this is my job. So, couple of examples of how we understand within AutoTrader. So over the last 18 months or so that I've been leading our network, we've completely revamped our recruitment process. So really looking at it through the lenses of kind of like, if somebody is autistic or presents as autistic, if they have ADHD, if they have a physical disability, how can we change the forms, the interview process? How do we offer extra time without somebody needing to ask for it? our policy is very much you don't need a diagnosis to get an adjustment. So if you wanted to come forward and say, oh, I've been diagnosed, you can, but you can just say, I want this time, I want a quiet room, I want this, and we'll make it happen, basically. Another big one is office space. So we're moving to Circle Square over Christmas, and we've used so much kind of advice and feedback from people within the network in terms of what that office space will look like, from lighting through to like carpet textures, the tech that we're using, how people are educated about that, so speaking to the different learning types and processes. I don't think we would be able to do half of it without what we've got out of Neon. Similarly, we've been able to pay that forward, so we're working with ABL Health, and they were looking at becoming accredited as a disability confident leader. So we've been through that process a couple of times now. So we're able to sit down with them and kind of say, this is how you get the evidence, this is what we're looking for. When they were falling short, we were able to kind of say, well, this is how we got there and everything, and then they got accredited. So it's a really good community and a really good opportunity to get involved. So I do have green badges, so if you want to learn more about Neon, feel free. And speaking of getting involved, I'm sure Seamus for his half.
There's a lot of people. So, we're going to leave this slide up. Yeah, so I'm here with two hats. It's really difficult trying to explain.
Can you just say it's a bit quiet at the back?
Sorry, is that right? Can you hear me now? At the back? Right, that's a risk because, yeah, my wedding speech when they gave me a microphone was over an hour long. I'm just saying, I've got about 7 minutes. I'll try and not do the song that I did at the wedding. So SENDCode, just as Andrew mentioned, we've been involved before Neon, through the Great Manchester Enabling Employment video series that we did, which were all filmed by an autistic videographer who was self-employed, who I'd worked with previously, and that's how that job came about. Just want to give you some context about what SENDCode is, because it's part of it's involved in a really close alliance and partnership with a charity of which I'm COO now, which is Digital Advantage. When SENDCode began, that was me saying I'd had enough of the mainstream education system, and I wanted out. I was a SENDCode in 2 Greater Manchester schools, one for 5 years, special needs coordinator, sorry, I'm a teacher, going to jargon, algorithms. I go into talking in letters rather than words. When SENDCode started, it was I'd had enough of saying no to parents. As a special needs coordinator, I was actually the one I remember most vividly, and I say this all the time, so sorry if you've ever heard me say it before, but anyone who knows me. I was sick of the headphone debate in schools, or the earphone debate in schools. I was sick of saying to parents, I know that would help them do their work if they just put their earphones on and listen to some music. And nobody would really know about it other than the other people in the room who might go, why have they got them? I can't have that. And the debates I had with head teachers saying, well, it's a reasonable adjustment, but it's an adjustment that is so easy and that has such a massive impact. And I had my headphones there, I was going to put them on and start, but my mind goes everywhere, as you can probably tell already. So I got out of it, and actually the first person I worked with, initially SENDCode was in an education, it's called alternative provision, intervention, and it was me working one-to-one with young people. And the very first person I worked with actually ended up going to one of the Newbridge schools after he'd been excluded from his previous school. I worked with him for a while and got in touch with Phil Arnold, who was at Newbridge at the time, who managed to get us somebody into Springboard. It was Springboard, wasn't it? God, this was all just before lockdown. So anyway, SENDCode grew because of lockdown. SENDCode started to be working with people who were in the bedrooms, as everybody was at that point, really, during lockdown. But people who the system hadn't noticed before, and they were out already. They were already in the bedrooms, and all of a sudden we could get funding from different organisations because these people were in the bedrooms, but they'd always been in there. But only lockdown made that apparent to them, which was like a bit of a mind blow for me. Why did I not notice them before? Anyway, so I'll move on because I could talk all day about the impact that had. But we just after lockdown, we partnered with Digital Advantage, a charity that was running pop-up digital agencies in schools, and some of them in the Newbridge Trust as well, but around Greater Manchester, Lancashire, Midlands. And we established a college called DISC, Digital Independent Specialist College. We're based 2 bases now, one just over the river in Salford and one just near Victoria Station. The college, at the end of I was the head of college for the first year, seconded over to Digital Advantage, and we had 10 young people in the college, and what we realised about 2 months in was there was no way, it was offering supported internships, which are essentially mean if you're 9 to 10 months away from employment, you can get some support. 2 months in, before Christmas as the first term, it was like, there's no way the workplace is ready for these young people. These young people have got the skills, have got the other things you need to be in a workplace, but the workplace, as Shirley's described, is not ready for them. So we needed an alternative for the end of that year, for us as a college to be successful. So that's when SENDCode became a digital agency. As I said, we've been doing lots of work. We've done the Greater Manchester Autism Consortium website as well. So we've been doing lots of content creation and online work. And we decided SENDCode would be able to employ some people as freelancers from the college, and also to give the people in the college, because it's a digital college, as I've already said, give them a chance to do real work experience, because we felt that a lot of the work experience that was out there wasn't real. It was always, and I'm not just in supported internships in other areas or other colleges or anything like that, but it was always leading to low-paid and low-skilled jobs was what our interns were telling us, and we felt that wasn't right. There was a massive, as most people, the stereotypical IT techie, those sort of stereotypes about who is divergent within an IT department, all those sorts of stereotypes were true in some cases, but actually in some cases. But what we actually found was that the people who were creative visually, I'm going to talk about Caprice in a minute, who's produced, that's one of Caprice's pieces of work, they were the ones that had this talent to do something really amazing, visually creative, not just programming, not just SENDCode, but we don't just do coding. But we wanted to grow that. So SENDCode became a digital agency. We stopped doing the intervention, the alternative provision. I focused on running the charity alongside Andy Lovett, who's now retired. But we focused on building DISC as a collaboration, with the end point being some employment in SENDCode. SENDCode now employs 10 people, 6 permanently and 4 freelancers. Everybody has a neurodivergent diagnosis who is employed. The college that we work in, sorry, Kirsty's there, so Kirsty's our employment partnership lead. The college now has, after 3 years, has 55 students. We had 10 when we started. We've had Ofsted twice now, a monitoring visit, and Ofsted earlier this year. And the feedback we get is that people feel like they belong there. They don't have to fit in. It's, to be honest, if you're neurotypical with us, you have to try and fit in, because 75% of the staff have told us, myself and Kirsty suspect it's higher, but 75% have told us that they see themselves or have a diagnosis of neurodivergence. So some of the staff meetings are hilarious, try to chair those, because we all see things in such different ways, and trying to make it as inclusive as possible can be really challenging, but that's what we come back the next day and try and do to make sure nobody felt left out. We always get emotional when we talk about it, don't we? But it's a pretty special place to be, and the fact that we've got people who, like Caprice, so Caprice, who now works in the agency, has been employed through our partnership with Manchester, the local offer team. So Caprice came to us the year I was the head of college, which was in 2022-23. Had been in education, Manchester resident, had been in education, because she was a wheelchair user and none of the colleges could meet her needs. Caprice later, of that year, also had an autism diagnosis, and Caprice has talked about this publicly and is happy for me to talk about it, by the way. But Caprice had this, that's from Caprice's website, her portfolio, and she had this amazing ability to talk about disability in such a positive light, and at that point for her, disability was her physical disability. But since then, and since her autism diagnosis, it's everything. Her disability is her strength. Other people see it as a disability, she sees it as a strength, and I'm talking about the physical disability here. But in terms of the autism diagnosis, and the other people who work in SENDCode, who also have neurodivergent, there's only one person who doesn't have an autism diagnosis who works in SENDCode. They found their tribe, for want of a better phrase. They found people who are like them, who they didn't know because they were in their bedrooms. They've got out of their bedrooms, they've got in, they've met other people who are just like them, and they're not, Alan Turing, as we talked about before. He probably had people who were like him, working with him in terms of his autism, because of the stereotypes that I've already mentioned, but until you really feel it. And the proudest moment I had in the first year of college was one day when I came, we'd gone to, we're just near the Printworks, and someone says, oh, they're going for a drink, and everybody had gone home early, but before autistic people who were in, all the staff had gone, all the teaching staff had gone, and the four people who were left in Wetherspoons doing cocktails, there were four autistic people who hadn't left the bedroom in years, and they were just out in the house. I got home and I was in tears talking to my wife. I was saying, you won't believe what I've just seen. And these guys haven't had friends, haven't been out, and they've created that space for each other, and that's what we always try to do. So, yeah, we are employing people, as I said, through SENDCode. We're working with other partner organisations. Next is a really good example of that. Local offer team from Manchester, Mannion and National Autistic Society, to provide work experience for the people in the college and actual paid work for the people in SENDCode. And we've managed to do that from me going, I'm sick of this, I'm going to do something about this. The people don't want to change systems, so we just went outside the system and created our own. So what we need from other people in the room is to take that message to other organisations, back to your place, and we need you guys to help us help the young people who might have been stuck in a bedroom, might not have been 50% of the guys who come to our college haven't been in education of any form for like a year or two at least. And now they've got friends, they're mixing, and we're seeing the value in what they can do, and they've got the opportunity to get an actual job that pays them well, instead of, being sidelined by access to work, by applications. We're creating an environment that we need everybody else to create as well in their place. Maybe don't do it the way we did it, because it's been quite challenging, but if there's an easier route, I'd recommend that one. But yeah, so yeah, SENDCode, digital advantage days done. This is about Neo now, just telling myself that. Thankfully I've not got a microphone right I'm saying it, but anyway. So Neo, as Andrew mentioned already, we need people to be part of it, to take that message out and make sure other employers get it and do something about it, and don't use the excuses, don't sit behind excuses to do that. I know some of them stand right in front of their excuses. We'll go to the next one. Thank you. So, if there's one thing you do when you leave, if you could have a think about a message you might take or something you've learned that you might want to take further, please make sure you do. And if you want to get in touch with us, obviously, about the college or anything, that's fine. I've not got a green badge, but I've got a green shirt. But I don't use green badges. I'll take this one. But I'm happy to talk to people if they want to later, and Kirsty's there as well if anybody wants to speak to her. That's not. I'm being myself. I've got like loads of notes, I've got stuff on my phone, and I'm not using any of them. So that's been my authentic me. I'll stop now.
of you in the room. My name is Mary Sayaki. I'm the project leader at the Greater Manchester Autism Consortium, which is part of the National Autistic Society. But I've been Secretariat Support for NEON since our early days when we were that long-winded title. One of the things Seamus didn't say is that SENDCode did update our logo for free just recently, so that's another thing I wanted to make sure you all knew. So I'm going to ask all of our panel members to come up, if that's okay, and Shirley starting here. I think your names are on the chairs. I think if it's okay, I'm just going to ask Nick and Eve to introduce themselves. I think everybody else, oh no, and Adam, sorry. Everyone else you know, so just to save a bit of time. How long have we got, and will you give me a 5-minute warning? Yeah, thank you. So we haven't got masses of questions, but that's probably no bad thing. Got a few more. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Actually, if you could hold it. Yeah, so I'm going to try and ask as many of these questions as possible within, I think, is it roughly half an hour? Roughly half an hour. So I'm going to just ask Adam, do you want to first introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody, I'm Adam Micklethwaite. I'm Director of the Autism Alliance, and we are a national partnership of not-for-profit organisations that support autistic people and their families. Sam's been mentioned a couple of times from Respect for All as one of our members, so brilliant to see him here today. And we've been working with Ian and Shirley and Mary, everybody, to support the development of the code.
Thank you. Andy?
From Adam to Eve, obviously.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So I'm Head of Policy and Implementation at the Combined Authority, so work with Andy Vernon and his team, and in his words, to join the dots and make stuff happen. And working with people, you can do that if you find great people who make stuff happen, like Shirley and Mary and others, really. So, yeah, it's a joy.
Thank you. And Nick?
My name is Nick Cooper. I'm Managing Director for Adept Corporate Services. So we are a security and cleaning company based in Manchester. I've lived with OCD, body dysmorphia and anxiety for years, so I am quite nervous to talk here today. And most recently I found out that I'm also autistic, which is something I would not admit to anybody until probably about 18 months ago when I first met Dr. Shirley and listened to one of her talks.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. So I'm going to start with the first question, and if you don't particularly feel you've got anything to add, don't feel like you have to answer every question, but I'll just go in order. So Phil has asked this question: how will we market the opportunity for employers to source excellent candidates for jobs, i.e. not asking them to help us, but how we can help them? Who wants to? Shall I just go in order? Are you okay to start? Do you want to share? Is that okay to share the microphone?
Yeah, hi Uncle Phil. I would just strongly encourage everyone to use the code. So I appreciate people have not had the opportunity to maybe not read through it already. It's by design a self-audit tool so that organisations can look at themselves and then think of their own growth targets and their own set targets in relation to what it would mean for them. So it would all depend on the type of industry that you're working in, the type of jobs and roles you've got. And I always say, if people always want to start with recruitment, you will already have neurodivergent people you employ or that you subcontract work to. We are 20% of the population, so make sure that you engage and make your own organisation internally Neuroinclusive first. Otherwise, people rock up and you'll get, oh, sorry, we weren't expecting you, or we don't really know what we're doing, and that's when people leave.
Thank you.
From a national perspective, I just say, again, reflect the point that I think Ian made at the start, just how flipping important this is. It's, look around us in the whole world at the moment. I mean, it's global, not just national. Which city is doing this right now? So, I mean, it's hugely, hugely important. At a national level, we will be certainly sharing it with, all the civil servants we speak to in the government and all the other people that we speak to at a national level that are involved in policy and public affairs. So I suppose that's a counterpoint to what Shirley was saying about the sort of local promotion of this. It's got to be national as well. We're going to be talking about it. We're going to carry on talking about it because it is right on every level.
I think in terms of where people find out about good jobs and good employers, often it's through your trusted networks, right? So there's something about all of us and all of us having these conversations to point to places that actually are neuro-inclusive and having those conversations. But then there also are structures and processes. So, you know, what's brilliant about the Good Employment Charter is it is a movement. It makes visible good employers. It's growing. It's got visibility. It's got the likes of Andy and others to help amplify that message. And that does attract. It becomes quite irresistible. You want to be part of something. And I think that's really important. And then we're doing work on that, I guess, pathways for young people into good employment as well. So you might have heard Andy talk about the Master Baccalaureate. And a lot of that is around going, again, how do we create clear line of sight to good work, to inclusive workplaces. There's a website called Beeline and GMAX, which helps people to find out what are the good jobs in those growth sectors across Greater Manchester and make that much easier for people.
I think the recruitment side is really important, but for a company like Adept, the retention side is just as vital. So I think one thing that we did is really starting a conversation about neurodiversity, and this started for us really about 18 months ago. I actually put a LinkedIn post out to tell my own story, and the amount of people that actually approached me from our current workforce, it was quite shocking, to be honest with you, how many people had the same issues that I have, the same struggles that some of my management team have. So it was quite interesting to really focus on starting the conversation with staff that are already there as well.
That's a really good point. I mean, in terms of getting the message out there, I think what we're passionate about is that the people we, obviously within SENDCode and with Digital Advantage and DISC, what we're passionate about is the young people getting that message out there. And they've had things done to them from above, from, you know, adults when they were at school that maybe they didn't have any say in it. So I'm not going to, well, I am sitting here, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I think a certain thing should happen in a certain way because, well, number one, I don't have an autism diagnosis, so I would never dream to tell them. But I know for a fact if I said, if I asked in the college, how do we get that message out there, that they would come up with a way of getting it to more people than I could ever think of, because I'm old. That, you know, just looking around the room with the generational thing, the different ways that people are interacting with this event just sort of crystallises it for me that they'll get the message out there if we empower them, and we can only empower them by giving them the information by giving them the ability to do that, which is what we've been trying to do for years.
So it's around recruitment, yeah? So the way we approached it was we just like filtered our recruitment process based on like the different, I'm trying to think what the word is, like categories almost. So we looked at like cognitive and learning, and it's like if we have a 30-question form that you can't pause and save halfway through, not very inclusive, also just generally terrible. So we fixed that. It's things like looking at visual and other sensory inputs, like is everything available in different formats, so if you can't read it, can you hear it? If you can't hear it, is there something else? We tried to make our recruitment process inclusive enough that you didn't need to kind of disclose anything, but then we do encourage people to do so, so that basically when they start, the manager knows, HR knows, and we can cater that kind of onboarding process for them specifically. So for the promotion, we have a careers blog, and we do have a few stories going live over the course of this year, looking at those specific case studies of people who either started working and then found out that they were autistic, or said from day one, I'm dyslexic, you need to change this for me, and we did it. So it's kind of then destigmatising it. So that when people are looking at us as an employer, some of our top articles there are kind of, this is what we did for them, this is what we can do for you, sort of thing.
Thank you. The next question is, how will the Charter influence live opportunities for need, not in employment, education and training, young people when employment is a key component of the Greater Manchester Combined Authority framework for young people? So, yeah, very interesting.
Looking at me, yeah. Yeah, I can start off. I mean, just building on sort of describing in terms of the MBAC and our work on really making sure that there's that equal opportunity for all our young people and a parity between academic and more technical routes. which we just know there's been such a snobbery really in our country where so many people haven't had equal access. As part of that, so it's recognising what are the areas of work, kind of what we could describe as growth sectors across Greater Manchester, and making sure that, as I said, people have clear line of sight to those jobs and those opportunities and making that much easier. And as part of that, there is a very clear pathway about making sure that that is an inclusive pathway and that we're thinking about people who are currently not in education and employment, thinking about neurodivergence, thinking more generally about how we make sure that that is a pathway that is genuinely open for all, and that enables us to harness that amazing talent that we've got across Greater Manchester and keep people in Greater Manchester in good jobs. That yes, give them financial security, but also give them the things that work is meant to be about, around meaning and identity, finding your tribe, human connection, a lot of the things that we are absolutely craving for as a society now, and which we know are better if we have divergent workplaces where we can all connect and have that full richness of life.
Thank you. Shirley?
Thank you. And one of the things that we do at New Bridge Group, which I'm really proud about, so we've got about 2,000 learners. If people aren't familiar with us, we're one of the largest providers of specialist education, state funded within Greater Manchester, is we do reverse employability events, which have been co-designed by the children, which I love. So the children have come up with a list of questions they want to ask employers, and they come up with a list of questions they want the employers to ask them. We send those questions out in advance. We come and we say, don't bring us down. If you need to bring a pop-up screen, fill your books and your leaflets. But we're not doing the choosy careers fairs of the old, where you hide behind a table and the children do dives on their knees in the middle of the room and leave. What we want is almost like speed dating, where we work the room and the children ask the questions of lots of employers, and also it changes the minds of some of those employers. I'm delighted that we've had, both Adam and I nearly call you Eve, and Mary, and Joe, who's here as well from Tameside Neurodivergent Staff Group, have actively, put values in action and committed to doing that with our young people. And it's transformational for everyone, isn't it? What was really interesting is we had the parent-carer forum lead in one of our GM areas attend it, and afterwards, and she's a chair of governors in one of our schools, she sat back and went, oh my God, we've never given a supported internship to a single young person, have we? We've never had an apprentice, have we? And I'm like, thank you very much. Because sometimes it's not about telling people what to do, like you talk about the push, it's creating that pull, isn't it? And you're creating that mirror, hence the code is an audit, to hold up a big mirror so people can go, right, that's what we need to do for our organisation. And one of the big things I would always talk about with young people, and I'm looking at you, Diane, and our GM SENDCode work, and what our young people will say is some of the issues they have around, say, transportation, it's free for people from 10 o'clock onwards. Well, which jobs start from after 10 o'clock? Some of our transport isn't always the most hygienic. I was just sharing earlier, wasn't I, some of my top tips. I'm thinking about transport. Transport's quite smelly, if you know diversion with my particular presentation. I have hand sanitizer in my hands and I put that on the edge of my nostrils just to take the edge off. So stuff like that people can do. But if it's really random, really, really crowded and you're really struggling and you're really young as well, that's a lot. So sometimes it's about thinking, and we get this if you work in the specialist sector, what's the journey in been like and what's the journey home like? Otherwise it's all going to come out at home. And I will defend the right of neurodivergent people to work. Because if this was I always say, let's just do the parallel thinking here. If we were talking about domestic abuse, and we were talking about people being at home the whole time, and having no financial agency of their own, no financial means to get money to go and live somewhere else, and where they're living might not be great, they're trapped in an abusive situation. And the best thing we can do for neurodivergent people and trauma-informed work is give them work. Let them have agency and choice and financial independence. And I will fight for our young people to get that.
Thank you.
Can I say?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, completely agree with all of that, and we also, because it links to it, need to get education right, because that's the pathway, that's the ladder, isn't it, up to where we need to be. And I suppose my observation would be, if you took the principles in the code that's on your tables right now and mapped them against education in this country at the moment, and how it has been for the last, well, ever since the Michael Gove reforms of the 2010, whenever it was, there's no match. We have and there are fantastic, incredible teachers doing wonderful things every day of their lives. I just, salute them with all my heart. but they're working in a system which is not set up to do this at the moment, and that needs to change. And I sure hope to. I hope that we make progress on this in the years ahead, because it simply has to change. It's a system at the moment based on rigidity and conformity and sitting still and being quiet and just doing these things this way. And we seem to have lost the humanity that permeated it at some point in the past. So we have to get that right too. And this moment, this day, this Neuroinclusive code of practice, bats far wider than just this, amazing, because it pushes into that too, and in health and social care and justice and all types of public service. So, yeah, let's really make it a movement.
Thank you. Anyone else want to add anything?
I don't really have an answer to the question as such, but I've just got the narrator in my head going over and over again, just sort of saying to me how important events like this are, because I think at Adept we try and do the right thing, and we try and put measures in place that work for me or that work for some other colleagues. But actually, I think just listening to these people speak today, I think I've learned so much that I want to actually take away and put back into Adept and try and improve even further.
Thank you. No? Seamus, do you want to add anything? Neat is very much your thing.
I've just realised that, yeah. Yes, I want to add something. No, I mean, in terms of... I probably should have mentioned a little bit more about Caprice when I was up there, because she sort of crystallises for me what this should be about. And she's somebody who was not in employment education. She came to us, had no friends. The powerful message that just something as simple as last year, with the help of the parents, she managed to buy a flat, and she didn't have that opportunity until that point. And if more employers could see the individual rather than the macro way of looking at everything from the boardroom down, then that would be a massive change.
Brilliant, thank you. The next question, very interesting one. Very much support this work, but I'm interested in why the code is be neuro-inclusive and not be inclusive, as this would be more inclusive for all. Any thoughts?
If we don't talk about neuro-inclusion, it won't happen. It's an intentional act. So skirting around and everyone doing the Hugh Grant impression and pretending we don't exist does not work. It does not work. It does not serve us, and it doesn't meet our needs. And we are 20% of the population. And the beauty of neurodivergence is it cuts across every single intersection. And so we have to talk about it. It has to be intentional. And I won't back down from that position, sorry.
Yep, thank you.
Echo that and add that so there has been a whole load of work that's gone on as well as part of the Good Employment Charter to think across all forms of inequality within the workplace. So that sits alongside a whole load of work to think about, whether it's about gender, whether it's about LGBTQ+ and sexuality, or if it's race and ethnicity, to really recognise that this is about, as a whole, the Charter's there to make sure that we're creating spaces that are inclusive and places of belonging for absolutely everybody. And we need to be specific.
Yeah.
And we know that, my husband actually works at AutoTrader, we know that if we work and design for neurodivergence, we create inclusive places that are better for everybody. And it's the same when we keep looking at the patterns across, what people experience across all those different protected characteristics and more, and recognise that if you work to that, you create spaces that are genuinely more joyful and pleasant and productive for everybody. But we need to be specific, so I completely agree.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to add anything?
Just
Yeah, go on.
So I completely agree with that. I suppose I'd make, again, stepping up to the very, very highest level here, that this is almost like a mirror that we should be holding up to the whole of society, and the whole, not just employers, but all of us, everybody out there, everybody in all forms of public service. Shirley said it, but when you're neuro-inclusive, you accept and recognise and acknowledge difference in all ways, that it can be non-visible, that it can be about some of the things that people who aren't neurodivergent just take for granted. It really, really puts the bar in exactly the right place. And for that reason, if you're neuro-inclusive, you can have pretty good confidence that you're going to be inclusive generally. So it's so important, and in a time when out there, a small but vocal minority are getting disproportionate amplification around ideas of division and hate. Again, this is such an important moment. We've got to take this idea out into the world and use it as a positive vision for whoever asked the question for inclusion generally, because that is exactly what it is. If you're doing neuroinclusion, you're getting it right.
And I guess on that topic of intersectionality, which is what we're touching on really with all the different areas of protected characteristics, there's a question here from Alison. What facts and figures do you as a panel hold on ethnically diverse, neurodivergent young people and adults in work/employment? Do we have those statistics, I guess is the question.
That's my whole point. I've presented the data as it is, so it doesn't break down that way. We don't collect it in HR, and it isn't used in that way, and it's an absolute scandal, and it needs to. And it's completely unacceptable that we don't do that. Some of my proudest moments are when I go around Hollywood Academy with our schools and I see the little black girls in our reception classes really happy, our little autistic girls, because I think, my God, something's working properly. You've got the diagnosis, you've got the HCP, you've landed here in reception, and you're absolutely flourishing. So we can actually make this work in ways that it needs to, but it is a scandal that as employers, we don't collect that data.
I mean, I would add that's the same across the board as well. There's a lot of work going on at the moment. Back to the point around this is about society as a whole and services as a whole, and how we operate is we haven't been good enough at looking at detail in terms of that kind of segregated data and understanding intersectionality in a way in which you really can pin down where all those factors add up. And it's also about knowing the person. And we talk a lot about names, not numbers approach in Greater Manchester, and you'll hear Andy say that in pretty much every event and every space, because that's the point. You need to know the individual in front of you and them as a whole, and understand and support them on their pathway. And that's why, you know, in a devolved system in Greater Manchester, where we understand the importance of local, it's knowing people through those networks that, you know, you can get to know, and not just numbers on a spreadsheet. So we need the data and we need the stories and the insight to treat people as they are, and not think that you'd be no neurodivergent person, you somehow know everybody, because you don't, you know, one neurodivergent person.
Thank you. Anybody want to add anything else? No? Okay. I love this one. It's anonymous, but it says, being gobby, how do we support people to speak up in their organisations if they want to do so? I am happily gobby, but just for reference.
It was me, I didn't mean to be anonymous.
That's fine.
Oh.
Don't apologise for being a gob, I'm one myself. Yeah? I'm a gobby. You know, it was really challenging to come out and send an email to like hundreds of people and go, yes, I am autistic, and then see the horror of the replies that came through, and the conversations were like, you've really thought about the ramifications of your career before sharing that at work, and things going silent and quiet, and then people talking to me like this from now on. I might have got a doctorate of kissing, yeah? So if it's not you, then who? No one's coming. No one's coming, but what is coming is scary hate down the line, you know what I mean, that is getting amplification in this space about overdiagnosis, about blooming paracetamol and God knows what, and misinformation. So if not us, who? And I'm really cognizant that children are looking at us for leadership right now. Children are having a torrid time in the education system. It's an awful online world coupled with that as well. So if not us and not our generation, then who? We have to be a garb and own it, yeah? Woo!
Anyone else? Talk about.
Nailed it.
I'll move on. There's so many questions that are coming in thick and fast now, so try and get through as many as possible. So, how will the Charter influence policy implementation when there's a reliance on data to measure the effectiveness of such a charter with individual businesses? And I suppose I'd put a follow-on is, if we don't have that data, how are we going to know it's working? How are we going to be able to come back in a year's time and say, so what? What difference has it made?
They're all looking at me and I haven't got a microphone. Hey, yeah, look, I was going to cover this in the summary. Thanks, Seamus. I was going to cover this in the summary, but this code of practice will be now part of the assessment process when we take employers through from supporter into member. We'll be asking the questions that the Code of Practice asks, and we'll be reviewing the practices of employers as they move forward to become full members of the Charter. And we'll then have a very clear indication of if you're carrying the Greater Manchester Good Employment Badge, then you will be neuro-inclusive. It will be part and parcel of it. So whilst it's not spelt out in the Charter, this is a code of practice that underpins the principles that are set out in the Charter. And again, I'll go back to my initial contribution. We need all of us to take this forward now. I will come back to it, but the Charter's in a really interesting position right now because we've got a government that's brought in an employment rights bill that pretty much matches what the Charter already says. So we've got to think about how we take the Charter and good employment forward in Greater Manchester, because we're not going to sit in our laurels, that's not what we do. But the way we do that, and the way we're planning to do it, is get into the weeds on issues like this and get down to the details. And that's why it's important for neuro-inclusion. That's why it's important that we've got a disability code as well. That's why we get down to the individual issues, but we also, and I think it was Andrew mentioned, about a fair culture. We definitely, and we will be driving understanding about what does a good employment culture look like in Greater Manchester, because that's where, if you get that right, the rest must follow. And that's what we're doing for the next 12, 18 months, working on that.
We have, and Shirley mentioned it already, we have data at a national level that is there already. There's data that shows quite clearly that you get an economic benefit if you double the employment rate for autistic people. So the evidence is important, and that needs to be, but so much of it is about just belief and just being with it and doing it because it is clearly right. So I just wanted to make that point.
All I'd add as well, it is the stats and stories piece. So what we don't want are any more of those tweets like we had before. You know, there's things that we see across social media, we hear in our stories, we hear in our networks. So we can see shifts, even if it isn't always in the data. Not to say that we shouldn't be collecting the data better. But it's also back to that point of, you know, by creating a movement through the Charter that more and more people are drawn to, and they see the positive benefits and they hear the positive stories, the difference it makes. And then they go, well, actually, we need to self-assess. And I've been in organisations where then they recognise the importance of collecting their data. They recognise the difference that makes because they can signal in their recruitment and in their retention that they're a good employer. And that becomes, it grows, doesn't it, and that snowballs. So, you know, the likes of our good employers who really recognise this will be doing far more, I'm sure, to collect that data for themselves and then hopefully shouting about it unapologetically and encouraging others to do the same.
Thank you. Can I also share as well? Oh, sorry. No, go on, Shirley. Can't see Linda down there. I'd really like to give some real credibility to two people in the room and the neurodivergent staff groups that they run, because you're not starting it now, you started it down in the weeds when it was difficult. So I'd like to really praise Jo at Tameside Council and Gemma at Manchester City Council. You're doing some absolutely outstanding work. It's been one of the most important privileges of my career. I spent 20 years in local government where we supported, you know, gone out and done workshops with their neurodivergent staff groups to listen to their stories and to support them. It's huge. It's huge. And they're public services, so they're also public facing, and I'm conscious of the tentacles of how this would spread. So I really commend those two organisations because they are led by people who are neurodivergent. They are led wholly in terms of co-production for them, and I commend that so much strongly. If anyone has an organisation there, we say we do peer support to neurodivergent people through HR, throw it in the bin.
That lends us quite nicely into our last question, but before I ask that last question, I just wanted to answer one of the other questions very quickly. Somebody said, who are members of NEON and can you demonstrate good practice? please join Neon and you'll meet us all. I think one of the main thing about Neon is none of us have cracked it. We are all very clear about that. We are not there because we all think we're brilliant and we're doing a great job. We're there because we know we can learn from each other. So just wanted to quickly say that. But the final question, I think it lends itself very nicely to that last point. How can we better showcase the leadership capabilities of neurodivergent candidates in senior positions, interviews, beyond just reasonable adjustments? I think Shirley needs to start this one.
I'll share a story with you. So back in the start of austerity, and I was working at Manchester City Council, I was given 8 weeks to look at changing the Sure Start budget from, I think it was £27 million to 10, but not shut a single Sure Start centre in the city. And I came up with a plan. It implemented and it worked. So if people didn't have neurodivergent people like me in work, you wouldn't have people who can work at scale and pace, who understand complex systems and processes, understand the politics of the environment, and really understand what matters for child development with those strong ethics, morals and principles, and come up with a plan. Children have Sure Start in the city and have been able to weather the storms of what's gone on in austerity because we made those plans work. Imagine saying we would never employ her because she's autistic. It's ridiculous. And one of those powerful things I can do right now is go back to all those people I worked with for 20 years in local government and go, I was autistic all along, people. And I always say, like, put your hand up now and who wants to swap places with me and be in a leadership position in Greater Manchester and say I'm autistic and own it every day. Barrington, I love you. Thank you. Thank you. You know, very few takers, very few people do that because I want to go, oh God, that's really difficult and that's really uncomfortable and oh my God, that's really hard. Yeah, it is, but if not me, then who? I work with some people who work on Whitehall who are in their neurodivergent staff groups, and their absolute frustration is that some of the very most senior people in Whitehall are neurodivergent and refuse to talk about it at work. And that's the cultural change work we need to do. And if we have to do it in a peculiar way by having our mayoral summit, sharing best practice, going into the tenure, going, hi civil servants, we'll do it that way.
Anybody want to add anything about leadership?
So I don't have answers, but this is an initiative we're trying to launch at AutoTrader, which is looking at how neurodiverse managers kind of thrive, because we've noticed a lot of the training, a lot of the content is around being an employee rather than an employer. There's also kind of an overlap in terms of age where if you come to a point where you're moving into a senior leadership position, it might also be around the same time that you've got your diagnosis, you're starting to unmask because you're having to relearn all of your interpersonal skills, kind of work out who you are, how you speak to what was a senior is now a peer, how you manage others. And we also want to start exploring kind of the interactions between neurodiverse managers and their, I want to say subordinate, that's definitely not right. Team members, if that team member is also neurodiverse, so if you have two people with ADHD, how do they need to structure their one-to-ones or kind of, that dynamic as well. So we're approaching that with just kind of interviewing at this stage, so asking people who are leaders, or are aspiring leaders, what are their blockers, and kind of building something around that. So hopefully that's something we can share in the future.
Back to the visibility, and I think maybe back to where we started this afternoon, really, in the Alan Turing example. How do we also make sure that we've had so many leaders in our history of Greater Manchester that Ian painted before? I suspect if we think back to whether it was the suffragettes, the co-op movement, the trade unions, the mill workers, how many of the people that bring the creativity, the energy, the innovation, the change that are, gobby, whatever language you want to use, that have fought and shifted our systems, how many of those would have been neurodivergent? So I did go on Copilot and I was like, how many leaders in Greater Manchester have we had that we know or we think? And it didn't come up with very many, but I'm sure there's a piece of work to be done to just again make visible and have that visibility in those role models in organisers across Greater Manchester that again helps to create, whether they're safe spaces or they're brave spaces, more people across our culture to feel that it's okay for them to come out as leaders and to inspire others to be the leaders. I think that's the work.
Totally agree.
kind of just complete support that and just bounce out Shirley's idea even further that at a national level it's not just civil servants but it's ministers, it's people who are there making the decisions right now, it's MPs, and there's something there really strong and really powerful, and we need to make it safe, we need to make it brave, we need to help them to do this as well, because if it can come right from the very top it will be magical, and we're not seeing that at the moment, we're seeing these dangerous currents in the opposite way. We need to push it back.
I think there's a couple of ways. The first one is we need to, as Shirley's described her experience of as a leader who's been maybe, definitely not treated in the right way when people found out you were autistic and how that was shared. But we need to empower people to feel safe to do that. So I feel like there's a campaign around that first that is then followed by another campaign for those people who do feel able to I don't want to say come out, but for people to recognise. I think there's definitely a case for those people to tell their stories, and for that to be shared through the Greater Manchester, GMCA, whoever, but the stories to be shared. And I think probably a really good way to do that, and I'm not touting for business, but we do have an agency with neurodivergent people who'd be more than happy to make a series of videos for you again, that you can put on the website, and then you'd be employing them to do that as well, but I'm not touting for business.
Do you want to...
Yeah, I just wanted to add as well, I mean, some people treated me quite badly. And I always say there's almost like three camps of people when you're out and you're in a leadership position. One is some people, you know where the hate is. You're there, they're not messing, they're coming for you. But some people have treated me so much better than I would have ever expected, including everyone on the panel, Mary, Ian, and especially Andy. And that's the most important teachable moment for me in terms of trauma recovery is it's okay, and some people treat you better when they know, and some people will help you, and not just to help you, but to help others, and that's a beautiful thing. One of the things that I want to do as part of my leadership thing, and anchoring this as a historical moment, is to make sure that this handbag goes in the People's History Museum, and that our children and the girls who made this get to help me create that story with members of Andy's team, so that we talk about neuroinclusion being normal and being part of Manchester's history. Woo!
Feels like a perfect place to end. So thank you to our panellists. It's not easy, standing up here. So thanks again to all our panellists, and I'll hand back to Ian for the final bit.
Well, I'm going to pass straight to Eve.
Straight to me. Andy's not here, as you know, but would have absolutely loved to be here and would have been here if it wasn't for Vicky Hatton's funeral today, which he is gone to. He was at the Fringe event, I know, a couple of weeks ago, and as ever, as per the year before, I think it was his favourite event of the whole conference, where he tried to keep a low light, but not sure he succeeded on that one. He has been part of this journey from the beginning, and I know that it's a collective effort, but he would also want to single out, I think, your leadership, Shirley, on this, and we said earlier this would not have happened without you, and he massively appreciates that. So whilst he couldn't come in person, we've got a video which talks really to his support and sentiments. It was made for Neurodivergent Celebration Week, so it was made a little while ago, so there's references there that don't feel quite as appropriate for today. It felt like it was still a good place.
It's very relevant.
Over to Andy, I think.
Yeah.
I'm proud to be with you all today in the week before Neurodiversity Celebration Week to shine a spotlight on an issue that is long overdue: neuro-inclusion in the workplace. For too long, the conversation around employment has overlooked the unique talents, perspectives and creativity that neurodivergent people bring to the table. This really does have to change. And here in Greater Manchester, we are making that change happen. This week is about celebration, about recognising the brilliant contributions of neurodivergent staff at all levels and in all sectors. From early careers to senior leadership, neurodivergent people enrich our workplaces drive innovation, and bring fresh thinking to the challenges we face. It's time we not only recognise that, but actively embrace it. Words, of course, are not enough on their own. We need action. It's why I'm proud to support the development of the Greater Manchester Good Employment Charter Code of Practice. What makes this truly special is that it is being shaped entirely by people with lived experience of neurodivergence from a diverse range of ages and professional backgrounds. Their insight is at the heart of this work, ensuring real, meaningful change. This code will be launched during Good Employment Week in the autumn, marking another milestone in our journey towards a truly inclusive city region, one where everyone, regardless of how their brain works, has the opportunity to thrive. As part of this work, we will look at recruitment, retention, all the way to retirement. So, this Neurodiversity Celebration Week, let's send a clear message. Greater Manchester is proud to be neuro-inclusive.
Thank you. Wow, what a panel. What a morning. Thank you, Shirley. Thank you, Adam. Adam and Eve, I didn't think about that. I mean, honestly, Nick, tremendous. Nick has been an Adept. For those of you who don't know, a security and cleaning company in Manchester based. They've been our employer of the year, but Nick is actually our leader of the year for the employment. And Seamus and Andrew, thank you very much indeed. And I think that's been a really, really interesting morning. I hope everybody's taken something away. Just to reflect on one of the questions there about what happens next, and of course I came in and told you how we're going to use the code, but after the Fringe event last week, as Andy was walking out of the Fringe event, he mentioned the Charlie Mayfield review. You may or may not be aware of it. It's to keep Britain working, and he's been commissioned by the government to come up with some ideas about how we deal with long-term sickness and get people who are not working into the labour market. And Andy said, the code, send that to Charlie. So I did this week, duly, do what I was told. But Charlie has been working with us and Greater Manchester for the last almost a year, working through his review. And he wants to trial a vanguard of his ideas. And guess where he wants to do it? Greater Manchester, of course. And that will involve the Charter, it will involve the Health Service, it will involve DWP, it will involve colleagues from Working Skills and GMCA. Partners that we all bounce along with, but actually we're really going to motor now, we're really going to integrate and get going on how we address those long-term illness issues and sickness issues in the workplace, but also how we open up employment markets to those who are currently excluded. So watch this space. That's something that's really exciting, and again, Greater Manchester's taking the lead on. I'm going to show you some case studies that we have produced, the team have produced, of our employers in our network and how they deal with neuro-inclusion. And hopefully, and that sits on our YouTube website, go visit it. There's loads of good case studies. You'll be fed up seeing Nick's face because he's there lots. But there's lots of really good examples of good employment practice, and this neurodiversity case study will take find a place. I just want to reflect on where we are, actually. So, you know, we live in a world of difference and a world of differences, and frankly, it's never been more polarized. We all know what it's like on social media It doesn't even have to be social media, mainstream media. You see it everywhere. You hear it on the streets. You hear it in conversations that you would never have expected to hear it. But the world isn't binary, is it? I mean, despite a grey October day, outside is full of colour. There's loads of linking shades between those two polarised views. There's loads of tone to the diversity of this place. And we need to recognise that diversity, we need to celebrate that diversity, and we need to understand how we move that forward right across society now. With this kind of initiative, with this kind of movement, we can make a big difference. We can make a world of difference to this world of differences. Thanks for attending. Enjoy the video that we're about to show you. We then go on to lunch and networking if you want to. And I'll say again what I said at the beginning, please respect the badges and people's wishes about whether they interact with you at this stage or not. All the slide deck will be available post the event and will be sent to you. So here's the videos.
Tameside's approach to neurodiverse employees, I would say, is always about inclusivity and about value, because we automatically have seen that neurodiverse employees, they bring incredible value to the organisation.
So our approach to working with neurodiverse employees is very much like rooted in our kind of ethos and our values.
The biggest thing that I've learned is the difference it can make if you incorporate inclusive practices.
It's just letting people come as they are to work, not expecting them to show up a certain way, and if they show up a certain way one day, not expecting that same another day.
I think by being inclusive and giving them opportunities to demonstrate their abilities, you get a really engaged workforce that enables them to be happier in the workplace. And a happy workforce is like the ultimate goal, right? If you've got people that are happy, they're doing their best work, you're going to retain them.
So our recruitment and our interview process is something I'm very proud of. We allow applicants to submit their application in written form, audio form, or video form. And then once they've been shortlisted, their invite to interviews includes all of the interview questions. And the interview questions, they don't leave any room for interpretation, because I think clarity is kindness.
So we're constantly evolving the recruitment process. We try and make it as simple as possible. We try to take away bureaucracy and governance, because we just want people to feel comfortable and to kind of be the best during their interview.
Previously, there was like a lot of different points you would have to hit in the job description in order to get to interview. We're looking at maybe stripping some of that back, trying to have a look at when do you need a professional qualification and when actually could this be learned on the job, to try to make it inclusive to maybe people who haven't come from, traditional educational backgrounds.
I know personally, as someone who's done quite a few recruitment processes, it's always been really nice to hear how supportive people have found it.
So when I first joined Tameside about 3 years ago, it was just the network having a chat, and Joe would feed it back to our HR rep and it would sit with HR and they would do the changes. Now we have this EDI network chairs meeting, so all of the different chairs of the different staff networks sit with senior leaders and discuss changes.
It being present, from a senior management level especially, helps to kind of like set that tone of it being open and inclusive and supportive.
It's hugely important to embed lived experience in everything that we do, really, and particularly with the Neurodiversity Network. Within the disabled people's network, there is a saying, nothing about us without us, and I think that goes for every characteristic, really, because otherwise, how do we know that what we're doing is the right thing to do?
So kind of biggest lessons we've learned and kind of top tips for employers, it's things like listen to people, act quickly, and normalise difference. So don't introduce bureaucracy and policies that don't work for people. And through that you'll see people thriving and feeling happy.
Turn it into a collaborative brainstorming session. If something comes up in a conversation, be curious, ask them, oh, is that something you'd like to chat about?
It's about allowing people to kind of shift things to work for them, rather than people having to be resilient to the workplace rather than adaptive.
Not everyone knows what reasonable adjustments to ask for. So what we did is we created a Teams channel to share their perspectives, to share any reasonable adjustments that they've asked for, so that we have this resource bank for anyone who comes in and doesn't know what they would like to ask for.
The number one thing I'd suggest that people think about is when you do inclusive practices, it's not just one group that you impact. So by being inclusive, everybody's experience improves. Reducing those barriers and the concerns that people might have before they become an issue is a really supportive part of that.
Join the Neurodiversity Organisations Network, get involved in the Good Employment Charter, because that have the measures on what good employment looks like, and network with other people that are on a similar journey.